was actually an interesting headline. I don't know if people saw this. So Oscar De La Hoya just challenged Floyd Mayweather to a $100 million fight. In fact, he offered him $100 million to fight. Now, the interesting context for this is here you've got a guy in Oscar De La Hoya, California native, actually, 48 years old, a six-time won his division, 11-time world titles in 6 different weight classes. Tremendous fighter. And obviously, he and Floyd Mayweather, they fought back in May of 2007. It was The World Awaits, this big fight in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand Arena. And Mayweather won in a narrow split decision after 12 rounds. Narrow decision after 12 rounds. And since then, and entering that fight, it was absolutely ginormous, one of the biggest fights at the time, because you had a guy in Oscar De La Hoya who was the defending kind of light middleweight champion, WBC, and he came in with a 38-4 record overall, 30 knockouts, and you got this up-and-coming guy in Floyd Mayweather who was 30-0 at the time, 24 knockouts. So that's, at the time, that was absolutely huge. And it sold over $130 million in revenue. It generated that much revenue. It was fantastic. And so you fast forward, and for Oscar De La Hoya, after that fight, the only notable fight came against Manny Pacquiao when he lost in 2008. And then he kind of retired. So that was his last kind of moment in the sun towards the back end of his career. Floyd obviously continued to go on and fight for several years. He had some major bouts, but his last real fight came against Conor McGregor in 2017, obviously won in 10 rounds, then took on the Japanese kickboxer and most recently the YouTube star Logan Paul in some really lucrative exhibitions. That's kind of where he's pivoted to, is lucrative exhibitions. But the reason why, to me, and even though he's 44 years old, Oscar De La Hoya is 48 and said he drew some inspiration from Mike Tyson, the reason why, to me, this fight would actually be super intriguing even now is because of how competitive the fight was back then. When we really think about Floyd Mayweather, there weren't too many opponents that truly challenged him in the ring, that truly felt like they belonged in the ring with him. The Oscar De La Hoya Floyd Mayweather fight was one of the best fights that we've seen, let alone between the two guys. Went completely the distance, all 12 rounds. And here you're featuring a younger, exuberant, athletic Floyd Mayweather, extremely fast, quick with his hands, utilizing the jab, moving extremely well around the ring. And you got Oscar De La Hoya, who was utilizing just and delivering just a flurry of offensive attacks, was on like personal salvos about 6 different times. He was just like an automatic machine gun, just firing as many punches as he could. Normally had to settle for body shots, but nonetheless, it was an extremely interesting fight, and one that, quite frankly, I would absolutely be willing to pay for to watch now, because I just think that, first of all, probably for his own kind of psyche, Oscar De La Hoya is probably thinking that he won the fight. And he certainly looked like the intimidating guy in the ring in that fight. But Mayweather won because he connected on more hits, which is how he's won every single one of his fights. So I would totally pay to see it again. 2 huge personalities, 2 huge entertainers with egos, and they can both promote a fight perhaps better than anyone. Because De La Hoya is also former boxer turned into a promoter. So I would love to see the 2 of them fight. If it truly is for that number of $100 million, it'd be absolutely sensational.